Welcome to Musical Talk Tea with Tonia.
Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, Tonia. How are you?
Hello.
Here having tea and biscuits and cakes and popcorn because it's winter and that's what one needs. I surprised myself, and I think you, very recently when I went to see Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, I was like so surprised when you said you were going to see Phantom of the Opera. Because
Were you like so surprised?
I was like so surprised because you are forever going on about how you hate Phantom, how much better you think Love Never Dies is, which I completely disagree with. I've seen it, so
Yeah. When?
About 10 years ago.
Yeah. So that was my.
Yeah. I probably remember it better than you do. I think purely down to the fact that maybe you've kind of cut it out your brain a bit, like because you're not that into it, or you weren't that into it maybe. Whereas I quite enjoyed it, so I can remember it quite well. I think
I still will say, and this seeing it confirmed the fact, and I will say I was in very good seats, and it was a lovely afternoon. Seeing it again confirmed to me what a brilliant piece of theatre it is. Mm-hmm. The music, give or take, whatever you think of the music, it works in the environment. It's a bit repetitive and it's a bit derivative, but we have to remember this show has the biggest orchestra in the West End. I think it's 34 players or something like that.
Is that many?
Yeah, it's massive for a West End pit. Mm-hmm. So it has that lavish feel already, which the music does demand. A friend of mine was playing the Phantom, Tim Hauer. Tim was in a group called Mike and the Mechanics. He's also done concerts for Jonathan Cohen. Mm-hmm. So he's a very, very good singer, and I was very much looking forward to seeing him. So I also went to Phantom to support him. The last time he properly spoke about Phantom here on Musical Talk was, I think, when we had Martin Ball on, when he played Andre, I think, one of the producers in the piece, and he was talking about all the operatic influences within Phantom. Mm-hmm. It still annoys me that people go and see Phantom and say, oh, it's a genius piece of theatre. Lord Webber's a genius. It's such a good opera.
I think maybe at the time it was written, you have to think about the time it was written, it was probably quite an ambitious...
Oh, it was absolutely...
music-wise.
And certainly production-wise, I think. The true star of Phantom of the Opera is Hal Prince, Maria Bjornsson, and Gillian Lynne. They are the three the real creative geniuses behind this show. I think Phantom is certainly a hard sing, especially for Christine. I've forgotten how difficult.
But she has an awful lot to sing in it.
Yes.
I think, so you have to think about the time that Phantom came out. It was 1989, 88, 89.
So it's 32 years now, so it's 86.
86, okay. So just after Les Mis then. So it sort of came to London off the heels of Les Mis. Obviously, the audiences were quite hungry for that type of musical at the time.
Yeah, so Les Mis is the
85.
longest running musical in the world. It certainly feels like it when you're watching it. And Phantom is the second longest running in the world.
So, I mean, at the time it was written and composed, I don't know whether it was something Andrew Lloyd Webber was thinking about when he wrote it, but it was probably in the back of his mind that there was an appetite for that particular type of musical. Do you think it's quite obvious in the writing that he was maybe writing for a specific type of audience who were looking for a specific type of musical?
Well, what you have to remember is that Phantom was originally conceived as a jukebox musical. Ah. So he originally wanted it to have hits, actual opera pieces of music put into it and just tell the story in quite a comic way, I think. And I don't quite know what made him shift his mind.
Well, it's funny that he's gone down the route that he has with Phantom because it's mostly sung through.
Yes.
Odd bits of dialogue spoken over music, but it's mostly sung through. It's very operatic.
Well, that was certainly the fashion at the time.
It's a rock opera in the sense that it's rock inspired. Well, a lot of rock inspired music.
4 minutes of it, yes.
Well,
that goes to the original casting and the fact that you had a rock star from the 70s. Who was interested in playing Phantom,
and also their influences from other musicals that have been written, like Jesus Christ Superstar, which he'd written,
and Evita,
exactly. But it's interesting that it's a little bit more like Les Mis. It's just interesting. It's a little bit more.
Well, I think if it were to be a full evening of rock music, it needs that kind of Victorian melodrama music, and that's what certainly comes out in the orchestrations, not so much in Andrew's writing, I would say.
Do you think that's why this musical is still successful, though? Because it came in the wake of Les Mis. Do you think it would be as successful now if it came out now?
I think it would be laughed at now because it's so melodrama and melodramatic. It's so Victorian, and it is very 80s. I said that to my friend. I said, this is a museum piece. You're not here to see Phantom for the first time. You're here because you're in London, and there was not many English people in that audience.
It was the same when I went.
So this is more about, you're in London, you're going to see a show. What show do you see?
Yeah.
Phantom, Les Mis, Mamma Mia now. So I think it's certainly a museum piece, but it's so well executed. That's what I really enjoyed about it. I would not enjoy it if it was a black box production with a piano. You're
saying that this is, if it had survived purely on the merit of its music, it probably wouldn't have survived purely on the merit of its music, but because it's such a great theatrical experience, that's the reason this musical survived that long.
The piece certainly thrives on, as did Les Mis and Miss Saigon. They survive on the theatricality of them. That's why these shows were so mega.
Yeah.
You think... there was a phrase in the 80s, you came out humming the sets.
Yeah.
Why do you see Miss Saigon? For the helicopter. Why do you see Phantom? For the chandelier and the boat
illusions.
Scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not so much illusions, but...
I think that's the thing that sticks with me the most, the illusions. That all adds up. The boat scene.
Yeah.
The boat scene is pretty much like an illusion. I remember very clearly that scene where the Phantom and Christine obviously appeared in... It was different areas of the stage all of a sudden.
It's just amazing... And I feel so pretentious saying this, the coup de théâtre, good God, of the smoke on the ground and then the candles ever so slightly rising up and then they start moving. Yes, it's a bit ropey, but there was a 25th anniversary production of Phantom which they did do where it was completely redirected and redesigned, which was more suitable for more modern audience demands.
Are you talking about one of the Albert Hall?
No, it was like for Les Mis, they completely reconceived the show and it's touring America and things like that with new illusions and better design elements.
But there's something about the illusions of the original production which I quite like because they use a lot of the original equipment.
What's unique about Phantom, I think, is the show is one that could have been staged in the Victorian times. There's nothing... And I've been beneath the bowels of that theatre and seen the candles and they all are lifted by ropes by men probably smoking cigarettes underneath the stage and
That's
stuff.
What I like about it, though. To be honest, I think I prefer that.
And I think that's entirely intentional by Hal Prince. I think he is a kind of director that would make those kind of amazing choices. Even The Thunder is literally a cutout on a black curtain with a light behind it. The lightning bolts.
And the illusions are, you think about the history behind all these illusions and the great, where a lot of modern illusions, the way that they're done, it's all...
It's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, exactly. And it always has been that way. So the illusions that are done in Phantom...
All two of them, yeah.
Well... I kind of just sort of... I love that about it. That last illusion particularly has stuck with me. I remember it so vividly. And it was so amazing.
Where did he disappear in that massive chair?
It just stays with you. It's such an amazing kind of... I don't know. Even though you can probably guess how it's done, it's just still... It's very atmospheric.
The whole show stays with you. It does have the greatest beginning of any... Not beginning, the overture. It builds and builds and builds to that moment when, gentlemen, a little illumination.
Yeah.
And then the chandelier going up, which I think is better than the chandelier going down because it's just pathetic.
Well, it's so slow. I mean, it's like 2 miles an hour now.
And the orchestra, I know what they're going for, but it's just... And that's the end of Act 1. What I had forgotten about was the... there's a scene when they're on the roof of the Opera House and then suddenly this thing lowers down from the front of the proscenium arch with the Phantom hiding in it. Spoilers. I thought... Why is this thing levitating in the middle of the air? Cool things like it was the first show to ever have surround sound. So you have the effect of the Phantom walking around. That probably couldn't have been done in the Victorian times. I'd say the sound was very, very good. The orchestra sounds wonderful. Whatever you think of the music, it's well orchestrated, it's well performed. They're working bloody hard, that orchestra.
I have to admit, it's something I really appreciate in the way that Phantom's done. I mean, all these shows now, they have these amazing flashy, effects, and everything is so kind of like over the top, or everything's really technological. And to go back to sort of the bare bones of just like you say, what it would have been the Victorian era. I think when I saw Phantom, I don't think I enjoyed it any less than these really flashy shows. I think actually maybe some modern shows could learn a thing or two, but maybe just going back to the bare bones a little bit, because Phantom still, like you said, that's the reason it's still successful. That's the reason it works. That's the thing, it works. Yeah. Don't need projections.
It's pure cloths and sets and drawings. Of course, I don't think they could have had a remote control boat in the Victorian times. I'd be interested to know if that technology has changed over the course of the production, whether it is still a remote control with someone driving it, or it might just be machinery under the stage, I don't know. But one thing I really liked was to see a show that had proper rhyming. That was nice.
That's a good thing about going to see an old show.
Oh God, it's so sad we call this an old show, isn't it? To see a show that had proper rhyming, that wasn't, dare I say, not that Sondheim is pretentious, but kind of on a very easy to listen to level, because that's what Phantom is. I want to hear your thoughts on the operatic nature of it, though.
What kind of got me into opera singing was coming in to opera via Phantom and Les Mis. Like, I sang a lot of Christine's things as a teenager, and then progressed onto opera that way. But, when you kind of look back at the music in Phantom, it really makes you think, wow, I don't think that the music is a particularly good representation of what opera was. So, for example, Christine sings, like, I think it's a G below middle C, really low.
In the high E flat.
In the high E flat. It's like 2 and a bit octaves, which is quite a lot, whereas opera singers are categorised into what we call fachs. Certain sopranos, they can sing really low and they can sing really high. I mean, the thing is that what you have to remember about Christine, it was written for Sarah Brightman, who could sing really low and she could sing really high. I can sing really low and really high. Some sopranos can't, and a lot of sopranos tend to stick within their fach, which is like a specific voice type within opera. So like most musical theatre sopranos are just sopranos, whereas we have lots of different types of sopranos in opera. So there's a soubrette soprano, which is sort of what Christine is. She's kind of a lighter voice type. She might cross over into slightly more lyric stuff, like light lyric stuff. So she might sing, she'd sing more like the sweet maids, the ingenues sort of things, whereas Carlotta is a dramatic soprano, or dramatic coloratura soprano, and they would not be singing the same roles. They just wouldn't be singing the same roles. So the fact that they're arguing over the same roles is just ridiculous. And I kind of get the point. The whole dramatic point of it is the fact that Carlotta's this massive diva-esque soprano, so she's probably going to be a dramatic soprano or a dramatic coloratura soprano. And this little soubrette soprano is trying to like step into her shoes, but it just wouldn't happen because they'd never ever be singing the same repertoire ever. Like, they just wouldn't. So it's kind of unrealistic in that sense, because they would never be singing the same stuff.
Now, I know nothing about voices, but I noticed some of the male voices, especially the 2 producers, they were very musical theatre.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would have happened in the 80s.
Maybe not happened in the 80s, but I guess the kind of thing that they're going with that is there are roles like that in opera, so it's not completely unoperatic. I think Papageno and Magic Flute, those 2 roles, they often have their vocal lines in the orchestration, so that the actors that are singing those roles can pitch the part, because sometimes they have more actory singers doing those roles. Just like Papageno and Magic Flute was actually originally sung by an actor who could sing a bit, so he had his vocal line in the music, in the orchestration, so he could get his pitch.
But what do you think of the 2 opera parodies presentations in the show? So you have, or was it, there's 3 of them. You have the beginning one,
that was quite realistic. Okay. in this you can imagine the role in it for soprano, though, except for the aria that Christine sings, the Think of Me aria, which is conveniently easy enough for soubrette to sing.
Like a pop song.
Yeah, exactly. But the actual opera parody that's before that, where you hear Carlotta singing the soprano role, it's right for Carlotta's voice, not right for Christine's voice. So you think, whoa, why is she singing this? It's a Think of Me, though. And they're all laughing at Carlotta singing Think of Me in this really dramatic soprano voice. It's just so strange, because it's so completely different to the bit that we've just seen Carlotta sing. So why are they laughing at her singing in this way? I don't understand. I don't think Christine is more right for that role than Carlotta is, based on the music we've heard up until that point. It's just really inconsistent. It's a really stupid point to make. Like, it's a point to make that only an opera singer could make. It's like, oh, it's so unrealistic. But it really isn't. The music isn't composed well. The opera parodies aren't composed well. And then you've got Carlotta singing the role of the sort of countess in the second parody, which it was just a bit very Mozart-y, which is fine, because I can't remember the time that Phantom set, and they probably maybe did do Mozart.
It's Victorian era, so...
Yeah, so maybe they were doing Mozart arias, Mozart opera still in the... Like, I don't know the history behind that enough. Carlotta's sort of singing there. She was in the first half, Carlotta was singing a really dramatic soprano role, and now she's sort of singing a light coloratura role. And obviously, like, Carlotta would have wanted all the lead roles, so she's probably one of them really fat, meaty sopranos, and I don't mean fat as in, like, stature. Fat voice. Who wanted to sing, so she was singing all the lighter roles. So maybe that role was more right for Christine, and she was stealing it from Christine.
It'd be interesting, actually, to talk to Rosie Ash about this, who originated the role of Carlotta, and to see what the historical accuracy of that.
Well, it's not historically accurate, but there are many, many sopranos with big voices who take on lighter roles. So it's a little bit more historically accurate that way around, but it's not with regards to Christine taking Carlotta's role in the first.
Do we think that was... We don't know the answer to this. Well, you might, Tonia. Do we think that's a novel thing, or is that in this adaptation only?
I don't know the novel well enough either.
So I don't think we can blame Andrew purely for that, though we will.
I blame him for that.
Then you get the third opera, which is the Phantom's I've written this
for Christine
whole tone thing.
That just sounds like a 80s piece of music, though. It doesn't sound like anything that would have been written in the Victorian times, does it?
But they did that in Love Never Dies as well, where Tonia just cringed, where he did this rock thing. And the Phantom of the Opera is a rock song as well. So
I get what they're trying to do. I get they're trying to show that the Phantom's ahead of his time, and he's this, like...
Yeah.
They're using rock as a kind of, like, ooh, look how eccentric the Phantom is compared to all these amazing, like, composers which were living at the time. It's like he was, like, really ahead of his time and all that kind of stuff. I get that. And I get, like, they're trying to make it come across like the Phantom's doing this, like, really weird opera that no one can pitch and stuff like that. He's written it specifically for Christine, and he's written it for her voice, because maybe all the other operas are right for Christine, I don't know. And again, it has to sound so tonally different to an audience. So I think that's why Andrew went for it in a really...
whole Tony.
No, I know why he went for it in like an 80s rock sound as opposed to like the really traditional classical music. And I say that in air quotes because it's not operatic music, but compared to the operatic music that they heard at the beginning, it is the complete polar opposite. To us, as a modern day audience now, it just sounds weird.
I don't think the opera that we see stage sounds 80s rock. The Phantom of the Opera song certainly sounds 80s rock, but I mean, we'll have to go back and listen to it. But the opera that they put on doesn't have any rock instruments in it.
But it just sounds really... It doesn't sound like a whole tone piece of music either. It just sounds...
It had elements of whole tone in the melody.
Maybe, but it doesn't sound like a piece of Berg. Have you ever been to a Berg opera? Oh my god, I went to see Wozzeck by Berg, and I don't think it was so complicated that I don't know how the singers actually learnt it.
Wow.
Because it was so bizarre.
I think he was doing that on a very, very heightened, ridiculous level.
Not on a basic level, I think. Okay. And you can pick a tune out of Past the Point of No Return. Like that's it's such a catchy melody. That's what I mean about like 80s. I just mean like it's still like pop music to me.
So upon leaving, my friend and I looked at the logo and thought, where the heck does a full mask come from?
It never does. This is something I think they've talked about quite a lot. I've got like a Phantom book somewhere at home. I have to look in. They just thought it looked better for the logo, I think. I'm not sure whether they ever actually give him a full mask. It just wasn't right in the show, and they went for the half mask. I think it looked better on stage, but maybe in the logo it looked better to have the full mask.
Hear him sing more if he had his mouth.
But there's a very famous story about Michael Crawford and the makeup that he has underneath, which takes ages to put on, and obviously it comes right down the side of his face and onto part of his lip, and he hated Past the Point of No Return because he couldn't make P sounds.
Past the point of no return.
He just couldn't make the put, and he got really cross.
Got really pissed off.
He got really pissed off, yeah, because it was like...
Fuck it.
Because it was restricting him from singing properly, and it must have been really hard to sing with this on, plus this mask. So I don't know whether it was like that, if that's why it was just a half mask. I can't remember the story. Someone will probably write in and tell me, you're wrong, but...
I mean, my theory as regards a dramatic version is that the mask, to me, looks shattered. So what if it was once a full mask that he found and then broke it and then only have his face covered by a half mask.
I think it's from one side it looks completely normal, then it turns to you and you're like, oh, scary, like proper
Ugly.
gothic. Yeah,
Yes.
but like in a gothic like kind of way.
Oh, this show is a
Scary
gothic
way.
wet dream, isn't it? I mean, that's what one of the things I loved about it. I'd be interested to see the new staging of it, the lot more technical bells and whistles version. But I really did enjoy it very, very much. I didn't get annoyed by the music. I thought it just washed over me. It's like someone sat down and wrote a Lloyd Webber parody. That's what this show now sounds like. But you've got to give credit for him for being a composer that has a very, very distinct, unique sound.
You know it's him when you hear it.
Exactly. This show is the biggest piece of entertainment of all time. We have to remember that, and we should feel very proud that it's still playing.
Like I say, my little quabbles with the music, it's such a terrible opera singer thing to say, oh, that would never happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, the music does the job, despite the fact that I think the Mozart parody in the middle is the strongest out of all of them. But generally, I think that, the music does its job, even though it's not great operatic music.
It's good theatre music.
It's good theatre music, and you can't get snobby about it because it's it's not really opera. It's not supposed to be.
Neither do phantoms exist if you're going to get really
well,
about it.
well, that's it. And at the end of the day,
That's Les Mis.
at the end of the day, you think when you see Phantom, it does its job. I'm not sure it's a piece of theatre that I would now sit down and listen to and enjoy. It fulfills its function. It is fine and enjoyable, and the whole theatrical experience as a whole is it all molds together, and that's why that musical's successful.
That's why I went to see it, and that's what I love the theatricality of it.
I just want to see it for the costumes again, because the costumes are gorgeous, and I'm super, super glad that they still have all the original costumes. Have you seen the designs in the V&A? Sometimes they have them on display.
No, they had them on display in the lobby. They got various artworks.
They actually have the original ones at the V&A. They're in the theatre archive.
We should go.
They have the biggest theatre archive. Well, you can't go into the archive. They have the biggest theatre
You
archive.
shall not go into my archive.
In the world, but occasionally they bring things out of the archive and put them on display. And a few years ago, they had a big display of theatrical costumes and designs and things like that throughout the years. And Maria Bjornsson's designs are at the V&A, and they bring them out occasionally every now and
As
again.
they should. There should be a permanent exhibition of London proper musical theatre. But the friend I went with said the ideal day is Phantom in the afternoon and Love Never Dies in the evening.
I still maintain that Love Never Dies never happens. It's not a thing.
Did you see it?
No. I've seen the, what do you call it?
The film?
The film, yeah. I heard the original cast recording when it came out in London and was like, I just want to be sick. This just sounds disgusting. There's 2 good songs in it, and the rest of it to me is just rubbish. I don't know. Obviously, then a lot of changes were made, and then there was the film. I don't remember much of it. I remember still watching it and just thinking, don't like this. It's not a great idea to write a sequel based on a piece of fan fiction. That's not how the original novelist intended the original story to end. I kind of don't like the fact that it's based on fan fiction. I think the story is ridiculous. I just never ever pictured that's how Phantom ends. And I don't get why Raoul goes to the theatre to get the monkey when he's an old man and all this stuff's gone wrong with Christine many years later. It just doesn't link up to me. Ugh, I hate it.
I think I will answer your question in the fact that enjoyed seeing Love Never Dies when it was open because it was an interesting idea. I liked some of the music. I liked the burlesque stuff it had. I liked the fact that it was set at an amusement park. But
it had massive flaws with regards to the story.
I don't remember anything about the story.
Yeah, exactly. And it has
so I
massive
think
flaws.
I prefer Phantom because it's a good, clever
It's a good story.
story.
And it didn't need anything more.
No.
That was the thing. The way that Phantom ends and the mystery of Phantom ending is enough. You don't need another story. That's not how I imagine the story to end in any way, shape or form. So it just ruins it. But if you're going to put a musical on based on a piece of fan fiction where the story is so thin or ridiculous...
That's PHAN fiction, I think you mean.
They are looking... Yeah. to create that and say this is definitely the sequel to Phantom and have the same composer work on it, and like it didn't work, the story doesn't work, the musical doesn't work as a thing, and it's that now the story is there and I cannot get that out of my mind. It's ruined the end of Phantom for me. Like it's ruined it.
It's funny, as the curtain fell, I turned to my friend and said, "To be continued."
But it's stupid.
But how do you feel about The Wizard of Oz and Wicked?
That's different though. It's a retelling. It's not a sequel, in the sense that it's not a.
It still changes the characters though.
It does change the characters, but it's seeing them from a different point of view. This is just a continuation of the story. Love Never Dies. Wicked is interesting because it takes the idea of a villain, turns it on its head. It's much cleverer. Paint never dries. It feels like a completely new musical, despite being based on The Wizard of Oz, because it's written in a completely different style.
I mean, what bothered me about Love Never Dies, sitting there whilst I was watching Phantom, was it didn't have enough of Phantom's music in it.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like, why would you do a complete new sequel and then not have any, like any of the music?
There were tiny bits of it, and they added more as the versions went on.
It needed more, though. It needed more.
Yeah.
Because that's what people... If you're going to go to it...
You want to feel like it's a continuation of the evening.
Exactly. Because, like you say, if you were to go to Matinee Phantom in the afternoon and then go to Love Never Dies in the evening, you kind of want some level of continuity. Well, I would. It's like watching...
Star Wars 1 and 2.
Yeah, and not having any similar music throughout any film, like, sort of...
I know he put that... If you listen to the opening of... Till I Hear You Sing, the bass line goes dun 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 dun, which is a reference to dun 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 from the original Phantom.
No one would notice that.
Another thing I might know. Since when has Really Useful Group disappeared?
Have they?
It's now
really?
LW Theatres, and all the theatre branding and logos have changed.
That's pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know about that. That's interesting.
I looked at the ticket and said, "What's LW Theatre? That looks like a dodgy website or something." And then I looked around the lobby and it was saying LW Theatres, so it's now changed it to Lloyd Webber Theatres. How egotistical of him. Obviously, they weren't really useful enough.
Well, I guess it's just kind of a bit more obvious what it is and who owns it and all that kind of crap. I don't know.
So are you going to go and see Phantom?
I'd like to see Phantom again. I haven't seen it for ages and ages and ages.
I think it's something one has to do every 10 years just to prove that you live in London.
just to remind yourself, yes. I'm here, I'm in London.
Tourist.
I haven't seen Les Mis for at least 10 years, I think it must be.
That'd be a fun day for you, wouldn't it?
And to go see both, man. You know what? I think I said this on the podcast like a year and a half ago, like, I'm so Les Mis'd out. I'm still Les Mis'd out, like, I can't.
Yes, I couldn't bear to sit through Les Mis ever again, really. Especially, we worked together a while ago on a concert and things. But yes, it was good to get back to Phantom, to just remind yourself really of how great a piece of theatre it was.
Have you seen the film Phantom?
I have, yes, and I remember being very excited when I got the DVD and then being very disappointed. Can you remember much about the film? I remember the opening is great.
Generally, it obviously is lacking a lot of the kind of gothic mystery of the theatrical experience, but as a kind of on-screen experience, I mean, a lot of the effects were kind of more realistic, like the actual, like the opera house setting on fire and all that kind of stuff. It's very exciting.
But you watch Phantom for the theatrical surroundings.
Yeah,
it just didn't work. Ironically, even at the famous French silent film, it didn't work as a film, mostly because Gerard Butler is a terrible singer.
It didn't work as a film because the majority of the music was cut and dialogue was added. And this is my problem with sung-through musicals on film. They never work. Les Mis did not work on film for me. It was too long. When they cut a lot of the music and put dialogue in for the film Phantom, that didn't work particularly well. I think that's the reason it didn't work on film.
So you think it doesn't work if they cut songs and put dialogue in? You think it doesn't work if they don't cut songs and have all the
Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't put them on. They don't belong on. The theatrical experience, Les Mis is a theatrical experience. It doesn't belong on film.
Would you say Sound of Music is a theatrical experience, even though the film is...
I just kind of mean like it's meant to be watched in a theatre, whereas I'm not entirely sure that that's true about other things. But Les Mis and Phantom for me seem to be...
For theatre.
For theatre.
More so Phantom, I think, than Les Mis, because Les Mis doesn't really have much going on apart from a wall coming down.
But the reason that doesn't particularly work because it is a theatrical experience. You can probably go to the theatre and watch them sing for 3 hours or whatever, blah, 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 and there's enough going on to keep you interested.
Yeah.
But on film, I literally
That's always been my thing with film musicals, is that I love musicals, but I don't enjoy sitting on my sofa watching a film musical on my television, because it's a 20-inch television and you can't see the orchestra, and it's very separated.
But some musicals work better than others on screen. Like, Les Mis doesn't work because, like you say, you don't get that. Whereas a smaller musical, the less of a big orchestra. Like, for example, I think everyone's talking about Jamie would work really, really well on the screen. A smaller, more intimate musical probably works very well. Would work very well on the screen. I don't consider Jamie's a great musical, but I don't consider it to be a fantastic grand theatrical experience, because it's difficult to take those grand theatrical experiences and put them onto the screen. That's what's difficult about it. Whereas Jamie would be much more easy to adapt.
I mean, one day I know you'll see Matilda, and it'll be interesting to see how that translates to film. Obviously, Wicked is being done as a film with Stephen Daldry directing it.
We're talking about Jamie's too.
Probably Hamilton, Mormon. They're all going to become film musicals, but we have Mary Poppins 2 coming out soon.
I'm really excited about that. I think actually the first trailer looked really good. The second trailer I wasn't so excited about. But yeah, what do you think?
I think it will be very lavish, very well done. I wonder why they didn't get Richard Sherman to do some songs, because he's perfectly capable. He's still alive.
Yeah. And Styles and Drew as well.
Yes.
I liked the music that they wrote for the original, the original stage production. I thought it was in keeping with the rest of the music that was written for the film. Yeah. There seems to be some musical nods, but I think that Styles and Drew are much more capable of doing that than
Mark Shaman.
Yeah.
I think Mark Shaman does pastiche better than anyone else around at the moment.
But there's just something so British about the way Styles and Drew works. It's just, I know Disney's not British. But
no,
Mary
and
Poppins
neither
is
are the
British,
Sherman brothers. So
it just feels British, and obviously the Sherman brothers were writing in a more British style.
Yeah. Much like Dick Van Dyke was acting in a British style. And he's in the film as well, which I love. I think
it's good. There's a lot of nods to the original film, like the animation.
Yeah, and that would be nice. Just hope it's not too sentimental. That's my one worry, and I know it will be, because it's Disney being Disney. But you've got to give credit to Mary Poppins. If we look at what she's created, a wonderful book series, one of the greatest films of all time.
You mean Pele Travers?
Yes. Even though she had little to do with the film. I'm talking about the brand of Mary Poppins. Arguably one of the greatest British musicals of all time. I still stand by that fact. And I don't think it's ever happened that a show closes and then opens again at the same theatre.
That's going to be exciting.
I can't think... and I wonder what production we're going to get.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think we're going to get the really Americanised, kind of more Disney-fied version,
Probably.
which was on Broadway? Which I would be really excited to see. I saw the London production and thought it was too long. And it was the kids that were sat in front of me just switched off, and I didn't like the horrible nursery scene.
Well, that's gone.
Yeah,
I just wonder which set we're going to get. That's my one worry, and I don't think the massive house version even exists anywhere. So it'd be interesting to see a new version.
As long as Mary Poppins flies, I don't care.
She will fly, don't worry.
She better bloody fly.
She better bloody fly.
She better bloody fly. What was it I was going to say about the film? I've forgotten. You made me forget now.
Don't know.
Nicholas, how dare you?
Just the effects I have on you.
Oh, what I'd like to say about the new film that's coming out, I think people need to remember that it's not a remake of Mary Poppins.
No.
I keep seeing lots of things like, oh my god, they're ruining this amazing childhood film. It's like, I'm just like, it's not
Beauty and the Beast.
It's not a remake. It's a
sequel.
It's a sequel. Yeah. And obviously, Julie Andrews is not going to be able to play
title,
Julie.
Mary Poppins Returns.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be the same thing. It's a new thing. And imagine how many children are going to go watch this that probably never really even maybe seen the original film, or maybe only ever seen the original film on TV at Christmas, and just going to come like, are we going to be coming to Mary Poppins completely new and coming to this world completely new, and how many more children it's going to bring to the original film. Like, so many children are going to go see this film and discover the original, and that's an amazing thing.
Tonia does have a minor snag with Emily Blunt singing, though, don't you?
Oh, she sounded a bit American in the original trailer, but then in the second trailer she didn't, so
Maybe they fixed it.
maybe they fixed it. I don't know.
Tonia, thank you very much for joining me, and see you soon.
Bye.
For more information about Musical Talk, please visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk. You can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk, listen to past episodes on iTunes and YouTube, and follow our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Gesundheit. For fuck's sake.
Yeah.